Congress is meeting in a lame duck session, and remarkably, they are getting quite a bit done.
With a deadline in sight. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz is in the thick of it with a new post on the Democratic leadership team in the House. She is with us live from Weston. Congresswoman, good morning.
Good morning, Glenna and Michael. Great to be with you.
And great to see you. And let me just again say thank you very much. The Congresswoman came to Channel 10 on Friday, presented me with she had read into the congressional record a very nice complimentary remarks, and then gave me a flag that had flown over the Capitol. I treasure that. So, Congresswoman, thank you so much. Very, very appreciated.
You are very welcome, Michael. We wish you all the best in your retirement.
Thank you. All right, now to the tough questions, which you know are going to come.
The nice part's over now.
Tomorrow, as you well know, the January 6th committee is going to issue its recommendations on its findings, and it is believed that they are going to recommend that the Department of Justice indict or bring criminal charges against former President Trump. Should that happen?
Well, I think the January 6th Select Committee has spent the last 17 months engaging in a very thorough, granular investigation that has revealed shocking evidence that points directly to former President Trump, that he was engaged and conspired with others to overturn the results of a legitimate election to be able to relieve himself in power. That is insurrection at its highest level, and so it would not surprise me if my colleagues on the Select Committee tomorrow vote to refer those criminal charges to the Justice Department. And then, of course, it remains completely within the Justice Department's discretion to determine how to deal with that referral.
Congresswoman, I want to ask you about something that we reported at the top of this program. Americans who are stuck near Machu Picchu, sort of caught up and stranded by political chaos in another country. What we know from the rescue efforts from the State Department is on Twitter. Can you give us some sort of inside look? Are you satisfied with the efforts being done to save Americans?
I'm confident that the State Department is doing everything they can to be able to get Americans who are stuck in the midst of a very difficult and thorny political situation and that are unacceptably unable to leave that country at this point, to get them out. I know that that's something that Secretary Blinken and the President are committed to, and that they're diligently working to do that.
Yeah. Congresswoman, this week, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, who will be the House Minority Leader, appointed you one of three co-chairs of a policy committee. I mean, that's really a big deal for the future, your future, in the House. But in practical terms, what does this mean? What will you do?
Well, I'm very, very appreciative of incoming leader Jeffries' confidence as one of the three co-chairs of the Steering and Policy Committee. I'll be able to be part of the leadership team that will coordinate our efforts in terms of advancing our agenda and defending against the onslaught that we expect to be coming from the House majority. So there's a very policy-focused purpose of this assignment. But the Steering and Policy Committee is also responsible for working with members to make sure that they get their committee assignments, and also elect our ranking members and committee chairs when we're in the majority. So it has a pretty broad scope, and my role puts me at the leadership table, and I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues to make sure that they realize their goals so that they can be the most effective on behalf of their constituents, as well as championing our agenda, which is really important.
Onslaught is such an interesting word. What are you expecting? What does onslaught mean to you?
Well, an onslaught really is comparable to an avalanche, if we can find another synonym. I expect an avalanche of wild-haired investigations. The Republicans are now controlled by a MAGA majority who, I sit on the House Oversight Committee, so as a member of that committee, I expect, as they said right out of the gate, right after they won the majority, the first thing they talked about was not what they're going to accomplish. The first thing they talked about was investigating Hunter Biden's laptop.
And his laptop, yeah. I mean, to what end? Other than embarrassing the president that his son, who has had a kind of a checkered career. Maybe he's straightened out his life now, but other than embarrassing Mr. Biden, what is the point of looking at his laptop?
More importantly, how could that possibly have been what they led off with after securing the
Yeah.
majority? You would think that they would want to use their newfound power and the tools that come with it to help make other people's lives better. I would assume that that's why some of them ran for Congress. It's certainly why I did. Um, Really spending the next 2 years, I expect to be dealing with, an attack after attack from the Republican MAGA majority to do everything they can to undermine President Biden, who has done a really remarkable job getting shots in arms, people back at work, creating the historic job growth, and frankly making sure that we can move America forward. That's what we all should be working together to do.
Congresswoman, I want to, before we let you go, a little bit more about news of the week. This is actually a Texas story unfolding at the border, but with huge South Florida implications. Title 42, the mechanism for immigration that since President Trump has been used as public health policy to keep would-be asylum seekers from coming into the country, that looks like it is about to end on Wednesday. And at the border right now, they're really predicting a surge in numbers, which we've already been seeing, and at crisis levels. What is the administration doing right now in preparation for Wednesday to be both secure and humanitarian as this all comes to a head?
Well, being secure and humanitarian have been at the top of the Biden administration's agenda when it comes to ensuring that immigrants can safely come to this country, particularly if they are fleeing persecution. We've been fighting the Republicans at every turn. They've done nothing but really engage in extremist rhetoric to combat and prevent people who simply want to come and make a better way of life for themselves, including our own governor, who illegally brought Venezuelan migrants from Texas in violation of state law to Martha's Vineyard. What we should be doing is working together to pass comprehensive immigration reform, to protect the dreamers that are here in this country, to make sure that farm workers can come back and forth and do the work that we need them to do to continue to boost our economy. But right now, with the MAGA extremist majority that's coming to the House, I expect that we'll hear nothing but anti-immigrant.
But is there, I mean, in the immediate future, is there a plan that you can share with us for Wednesday?
I am confident that the Biden administration is preparing to be able to safely process people as they approach the border. What we don't need to be doing is engaging in the kind of extremist, non-factual rhetoric that Republicans have been, where they act as if there are immigrants streaming across our borders, which is not the case. And we need to make sure that we can properly process people, be able to make sure that they have a safe place to go, that they come and are held accountable and show up for their court dates, just like we've done for decades. But Republicans have continually thrown obstacle after obstacle in the path of achieving that.
Yeah. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, always good to speak with you. And once again, thank you for the flag that flew over the Capitol. My wife and I will treasure that.
You're welcome, and best of luck. And thanks so much for your years of service to our community, Michael.
Thank you, Debbie. All right, up next, another retiring journalist who changed hearts and minds in South Florida.
Who would that be? Leonard Pitts is live with us next.
Hey, Michael Putney. This is Dave Barry, and I want to congratulate you on a great career, on being a consummate professional in this market, and above all, on somehow going 33 years of covering Miami politicians and still being sane. I don't know how you did it, man, but congrats, best of luck, love you.